Welcome back to part 2 of our review of the Constitution of the Iteso Cultural Union. My name is Aanyu Sheila Ogeuna, your host, and I am joined by
Ogeuna, Yoganoya Teker, Ijasibi. Happy to be back here to have this conversation.
I'm also really excited about this segment because we are now going into that part that everyone has been waiting for. Yes, so take us through it.
Okay, thank you. Last time we looked at the number of articles, and now we are continuing from there. So the next article we're looking at is Article 6, which is on the finances of the union. It talks about how the finances and the properties of the union are managed. And maybe something also clear there says that in case of the dissolution of the Iteso Cultural Union, then all those finances or properties shall be handed over to the three religious sects, the Catholics, Protestants, or the Muslims, for safe custody, or in law what we call to keep in trust for the people of Iteso.
Okay, that is Article 7.
That is Article 7, yes.
Yes, so it only recognizes three religious sects, that is the Catholics, the Anglicans, and the Muslims, right?
I don't think the word is to recognize. The word it gives the option of trust to those three.
Okay.
That those will keep in trust, because I don't know the reason behind, but it's not. I don't think it's an issue of recognizing some and not recognizing some. But those, I think, are the three major options which cover the big majority of people.
And also I see that the finance, property, assets and liabilities of the union can be provided through annual subscription fees. Is there maybe a particular fee and a mode of collecting these fees, or?
Well, that does not come out clearly in the Constitution. It's a question we shall have to put to Honorable Gabriel Opolot when he comes on, new Minister of Information. And I hope he comes on soon. He will clarify a lot of these other things that are not within the Constitution.
Okay.
Yes. So the next important article is Article 9, which talks about the Delegates Conference. Remember, the Delegates Conference is the supreme body of the Iteso Cultural Union. So the Delegates Conference, when it meets, has to do certain things. So the first one is, what is the quorum of the Delegates Conference? Or to start with, what is the time frame of notice for the Delegates Conference? According to this to the article, 21 days. So 21 days from the day of the Delegates Conference, a notice should have been made. A notice is like invitation to the delegates to come for the conference. Secondly, when the delegates meet, what is the quorum for meetings? A quorum, to maybe make it simpler for some people, a quorum is how many people can be present, what percentage of people can be present for a meeting to go on legally. So that quorum has been put at 50 plus 1. So any number above half of the delegates can constitute the delegates conference to start doing the work. Then maybe voting in the delegates conference. Remember, the delegates conference votes the Emorimor Papa Iteso. So the voting can be done by show of hands or by secret ballot. So those are the two methods which are provided for in the Constitution in the way people can vote. And voting has to be personal, not by proxy. When we say proxy, it means that you cannot send a letter and say that, okay, may I vote this way? Or you send someone else to stand in for you to vote on your behalf. Certain constitutions allow voting by proxy, but this one does not. The voting has to be by the delegate himself or herself.
Yes.
So that is very key. Now, when the conference sits, what is its business? The first one is that they approve their minutes of the previous delegates conference. So that is usually the first item. Then the Emorimor Papa Iteso also is expected to address the delegates conference. So the delegates conference is supposed to listen to and receive the address of His Highness Papa Emorimor on such a day. The third is that they approve the report for the council. So remember, in the hierarchy, the delegates conference is the supreme body. So all other bodies should report to it. So even the Emorimor's address is about the status of things in Iteso, the status of work.
It's and like he has to report to the delegates conference.
So he gives the delegates conference that address. The council also gives reports to the delegates conference. So disciplinary action also for any of the lower bodies, like the council, cabinet, that is ministers or deputy ministers, is the preserve of the delegates conference. Then again, importantly, the representatives for the Iteso Cultural Union from the diaspora are elected by the delegates conference. So if the ICU decides that we will need a representative in Western Europe, we need a representative in maybe North America, in South America, in Asia, in the Australias and so on, then it's the delegates conference which elects such representatives into those positions.
Okay.
Yes. So that is what the business of the delegates conference is. And so I want to run quickly into Article 11, which talks about the office of His Highness the Emorimor Papa Iteso.
Okay. So before we go any further, I would like just to clarify on something small. The delegates conference comprises of 2 people, a male and female from the parish.
Yes, the delegates who constitute the delegates conference are elected the time the parish executive committees are elected. Remember, in our part 1, we talked about the elections of the executive committees of the parishes. So when they elect the 9, they also elect 2 delegates, 1 male and 1 female.
Okay.
And those delegates from those parishes are the ones who constitute the delegates conference. Yes.
Okay.
So the office of His Highness Papa Emorimor comes in Article 11, and it talks about the office in general. One, that he will be the cultural leader of the Iteso Cultural Union. And now the question I know which rings in other people's minds is that if this article says that Emorimor is the cultural leader of the Iteso, then why does again another article say that the delegates conference is the supreme body? I don't know what your opinion is, but I think that could be a contradiction in itself. Then it says he's the spokesperson of Iteso on cultural and traditional matters. He's supposed to promote the cultural activities, to appoint advisors to his office. Then the office of Emorimor also appoints a prime minister, a deputy prime ministers, ministers and deputy ministers. Those are the ones which he appoints. Then he also appoints the electoral commission and certain boards which are within the constitution. So he also has the power to terminate the appointments. It's a basic principle in law that he who has the power to appoint has the power to disappoint. So it's usually basic like that the appointing authority is also the disappointing authority.
Okay.
So that is that. The Emorimor also is expected to be the chief dispute resolution person amongst the clans. So if the different clans have disputes, then Emorimor Papa Iteso is supposed to be the chief adjudicator of such disputes. Of course, that can be handled sometimes through delegation. That's why he has all these advisors and ministers and so on. But that role is under the office. Then he's also the custodian of all the properties. Yeah? Remember the properties we talked about in Article 6, the finances and the properties. The custodian of those properties
is the
Emorimor Papa Iteso. Then the Emorimor also keeps records of the population of Teso. So I don't remember the last time the Ichu went around doing a census, or do they rely on the data that is collected by government? Probably that, because I know such activities are really very costly. So probably they rely on, that is my assumption, they rely on the data collected by the government agencies. Yes. Then His Highness Emorimor is also the one who calls for council and the delegates conference meeting. Yeah? In the event that the chairpersons of those bodies fail to call for what?
For the
meeting. So in case the chairperson of the council or chairperson of the delegates conference does not call for the meeting as is needed, then Papa Emorimor has the power to call for such meetings. Then he's also the head of his cabinet. And remember, cabinet is the one which does the real work. Yeah? So he appoints his cabinet members, who are the prime minister, deputy prime ministers, ministers, and their deputies. And they are the ones who do the work. So we need also to look at the qualifications of Emorimor.
Yes.
And that comes in the next article.
Yes, but before we go into the next article, I can see that there is a point here that says His Highness the Emorimor Papa Iteso and his cabinet shall take charge of the institution while new council and delegates conferences are in the process of being constituted within the period of 6 months. Now that is in the case of...
Okay, what that means is that this constitution has term limits for the other bodies apart from the office of the Emorimor. So the council is 5 years. The delegates conference is 5 years. So there is a time where those bodies come to an end in terms of their term of office.
Okay.
And it is a common theme that 6 months is a transitional period in the Iteso Cultural Union. So during that period, it means that all the other duties are held by the office of Emorimor.
Okay.
All the duties that should have been exercised by the council or by the delegates conference.
Okay.
Yes.
Then the qualifications of His Highness the Emorimor Papa Iteso.
This comes in Article 12. The first one, it says that the Emorimor Papa Iteso must be etesot. So that is what it says, must be etesot.
So it means you cannot have a she Emorimor.
According to that constitution, if we are to do the literal interpretation of words and give them their natural meaning, it only gives an option of he, and that means that the Emorimor Papa Iteso must be a man according to the constitution. Is that fair? I do not know. What do you think?
Share your views.
2, must be 60 years and above. So if you are below 60, you cannot be Emorimor Papa Iteso. So that is the age qualification. 60 years and above. And there have been many questions about this age. Why can someone 55 also qualify?
There's even a group of 40, 45.
45-year-old has good ideas. I don't know, share your views, but the Constitution talks about 60 years.
Okay.
Then they say that the person must be familiar and committed to the Iteso culture and its traditions. So that is what we call a subjective qualification. Because how do you determine someone's familiarity with traditions and so on?
Maybe from activities.
Probably.
Taking part in cultural activities, supporting the cultural activities, sharing about the information on all these culture and traditional activities. I think that is, in my opinion, I believe that to be familiar and committed, you have to know and also support.
Okay.
I believe, in my opinion.
Okay. The next thing is that the person must be of sound mind. When they say sound mind, it means that they do not have any mental challenges. So someone has to be of sound mind. That is the qualification. Then has to be of good repute and integrity. How they determine that, I also don't know. I think the delegates conference is the one which is qualified to determine some of those things. Good repute and integrity. So if they think that you don't have good repute and integrity, they may not vote for you.
Okay.
Then this issue keeps coming up in qualification. That the person has to have a dignified traditional home. And we shall ask Honorable Minister for Information, or Polot Gabriel, when he comes in. What does it mean to have a dignified traditional home? Does it mean that you have your grass-thatched houses?
The traditional homestead.
The traditional homestead. Does it mean that someone with his modern, what we call in Teso, a bati, does it mean that someone with a bati is disqualified? Or does also a bati mean that it's a traditional home? We shall ask Gabriel when he comes on. A dignified traditional home. Then, educational requirements. S4. If you have finished S4 and you have your O-level certificate, you qualify to be Emorimor Papa Iteso. So people will ask, what if someone has never gone to school but he knows
good repute,
and so
familiar.
On? I don't know. Others may argue that maybe S4 is too low. Maybe it should be something higher. Because to lead millions of Iteso, maybe you have to have a certain educational level.
In this era, where people have actually been to school?
I do not know. I don't know what your opinions are, your views are. Then, the person also has to be willing to accept the office when elected. Remember, I said that these offices, the nomination process is through a document for, I think, Form 1, in Schedule 1, which is a nomination form. So it's expected that someone fills out and nominates you. So you also have to be ready to what?
To accept the responsibility.
Responsibility if you're elected. Then you are not supposed to take part in partisan politics. So you take an understanding and undertaking. The person elected must take an undertaking that they will not be involved in partisan politics. Which begs the question, what if I was a mobilizer yesterday? And today I've said I'm ready to take on this responsibility, and I'll not be again an agent for this party or the other party. Do you qualify then? For instance, let's put a practical example. if a former member of parliament who was
is 60 years and above,
yes, and used to be a member of maybe the NRM or FDC or any other party, but now they want to be elected Emorimor, and they are ready to take that undertaking that from today onwards I will not participate in partisan politics. Do they qualify? We are waiting for Gabriel. Please come on and clarify some of these issues. Then, of course, this person has to be active in the clan issues and the traditional issues, and the clan must be registered with the Iteso Cultural Union. The clan this person comes from must be registered.
Does that mean that there are some clans that are actually not registered?
I do not know. I will ask. We shall ask someone from Ichu to come and tell us which are those clans which are registered, or are there any clans which are not registered? Yeah? And what is the process of registering a clan to participate or to be part of Ichu?
I thought it is a responsibility of Ichu to actually be like the Emorimor as a unifying factor, to be able to find all these clans, all the people who belong to the Iteso culture, and recognize them and maybe register those clans. Is it
that clarification? Me as a legal scholar, I can only interpret what is written. Yeah?
Yes.
What the practice has been, we shall try to find out from the leadership of Ichu. What in practice, what have they been doing?
Okay.
Besides the constitution, what have they been doing in day-to-day practice?
Okay.
Then next article 13 talks about the elections of His Highness Emorimor Papa Iteso. And we have talked about the qualifications, we have talked about who elects, which is the delegates conference. So about the actual election. Now, maybe we need to go slowly on this one because people are really, really interested in this one, and I'll prefer to read it verbatim, word for word.
Okay.
Yeah? Because here, someone might say this was not clear. So I'm going to read word for word. Article 13A. His Highness the Emorimor Papa Iteso shall be elected by the delegates in the conference of the Union on a rotational basis from any of the 4 regions spelled out in Article 1, Clause C, taking into consideration already represented regions, but his tenure is subject to Article 15 of this Constitution. So let's break that one down. That one is elected by the delegates conference. 2, it has to be a rotational basis from the 4 regions, the 4 regions of Teso. So let's go back to those regions because this is very important. Let's go back to Article 1 and look at the 4 regions from which Emorimor Papa Iteso can be what? Elected from. So
on a rotational basis. That means that if the Emorimor was from north, the first Emorimor is from the north, the next must be from another region. Okay.
So
there's no particular.
These are the regions. 1, northern region. Katakwi, Soroti, Kaberamaido, and Amuria. Which means that all those other districts which were broken out of there, Kapelabion, Kalaki, and so on, fall under this region. Now, the other region is Central Region. Central Region covers Ngora, Bukedia, Kumi, Serere, Butebu, Palisa, Mbale. That is the region, the Central Region. And it is important maybe to note that the last Emorimor was from Central Region.
Serere.
From Serere. According to this constitution, this election has to be
on rotational
basis. It will mean that Central Region is disqualified from providing the next Emorimor. So
they should not even nominate their candidates.
Yes. So you, Aanyu, who is from Ngora.
I am female. I cannot even qualify.
Oh, my brothers who are in Ngora and
Kumi,
you do not qualify for this round. Then the next region is Southern Region. Now, Southern Region takes Tororo, Bujiri, Busia, Namayingo, Mayuge, Manafa, and all the other small regions, districts which have been cut from there. That is the Southern Region. Then we have the Eastern Region. The Eastern Region is mainly regions which are in the Republic of Kenya, which are part of the Union. And that is Eastern Region, which is Mount Elgon, Cheptais, Teso North, Teso South, Busia, Kenya, Nambale, and Matayos. So those are the 4 regions which are available, and the Emorimor is elected on a rotational basis in those 4 regions. So the question is, having known the regions, do you qualify to be the next Emorimor? I do not know. So at least they do.
To see.
Please pick the nomination form and submit it.
Can you nominate yourself?
Usually, nomination means that but you can nominate yourself, because the practice also has been, even with the other elections like parliamentary and so on, you fill your nomination form. Of course, there are those people who are
behind
the
you.
Nominators. You have to have some people behind you
to
and
sign,
so on. Yes, so I am sure that is the same criteria. So we are still on Article 13. The next, whenever the office of His Highness the Emorimor Papa Iteso shall become vacant, the chairperson shall notify all the delegates and invite interested candidates for the election to fill nomination forms in Schedule 1. That will be provided at the extraordinary conference of delegates which shall be convened for the purpose. So when they talk about the chairperson here, they talk about the chairperson of the council. So if we shall look at how the office of Emorimor falls vacant. But if it falls vacant, then there has to be a notification to the delegates and to nominate people, to fill nominations.
So the nominations happen during 21 days, I see.
No, this is what you call a special delegates conference. Now, usually with constitutions, to be able to read and interpret a constitution, you don't only read one article and then leave it to stand on its own. You interpret it as the article, but also based on all the other articles which are within. So when you look at an article as standalone, you miss the point usually. So by the end of our elaboration of this, all of it will come together.
Okay.
Yes. Then, if there is only one person who is validly nominated, if there is only one person who is validly nominated, then the chairperson of the conference shall declare that person duly elected as His Highness Emorimor Iteso. So if there is only one person who gets nominated,
what if the person nominated is the chairperson? Does he?
No, I think it means that to when you get into this race, you should have relinquished the other position, because you cannot chair a conference which is also electing you. I think that wouldn't be right with other standards in constitutional working.
Okay.
You have to be able maybe to resign this post before you go for the next. That is what I think.
Okay.
Then, if there are more than one person duly nominated during the conference, the delegates present shall proceed to elect His Highness. So if there are 2 candidates who are duly nominated, or 3 or 5 or 10, akalaya.
Not putting up hands.
Okay, there's both. It can be by a show of hands, it can be by secret ballot. So an election is triggered if there is more than one person nominated.
From what you've been reading, I am getting that during the nominations, or the nominations take place, and then the election takes place during that very.
Yes.
What if the quorum is not 50 plus 1%?
Then there's no sitting.
There's no sitting.
That's what it means.
Okay.
Because for the delegates conference to start, quorum has to be established. Okay. So if there's no quorum, it means that they have to call for another delegates conference, which I think is 14 days according to the Constitution. So quorum is a determinant. So you cannot proceed on any other matter if you do not have quorum. Okay. If you don't have quorum, it stops there. And if you proceed, then you proceed on something which is not legally binding. Yes. Then the person nominated shall signify his consent. So when you are nominated, you must consent to the nomination before you are duly nominated. So if someone nominated you and you don't consent to it, then you are not duly nominated for the election, because you cannot elect someone who is not interested.
Okay.
Then the ballot is by show of hands, or secret ballot, or any other way by which the conference may determine. Standing
at the back.
Yes, so the conference, what is provided here is a secret ballot and by show of hands. However, the delegates conference has the power to determine any other way in which
they can elect.
It can elect the leader. But of course, with the other principle of one delegate, one vote.
And only those present shall vote. That means if there is 50 plus 1 and the rest do not attend.
Yes, those are the ones who will vote, and their decision will be legally binding.
Okay.
Then the candidate with the highest vote will be elected winner. So this is what we call a simple majority kind of election, that you don't have to have like in Uganda 50 plus 1. 50 plus 1%. So here, any simple majority. For example, if you are 51 candidates duly elected, and someone gets 15 and he has more than the others, then he will be the one elected.
Okay.
Then the person who is elected is inaugurated by religious leaders after 90 days of the election.
Religious leaders, is it the Catholic, Muslim, Anglican, or our religion, African Traditional Society?
Well, the word they use here is religious leaders. So we shall ask if there is any particular religious leader who is used, but according to this document, they just say religious leaders. And when you even look at the interpretation part of the Constitution, Article 33, you do not see the interpretation of the word religious leader. So religious leader, I don't know which one, or which ones inaugurate the what? The Emorimor.
And that is in Article 14.
Article 14.
Okay.
Now, Article 15 is how does the tenure of Papa Emorimor come to an end. Having been elected and so on and so forth and inaugurated, how does the tenure come to an end?
Or what makes it vacant?
Or how does the office become vacant? One, the Emorimor Papa Iteso can resign on his own volition.
Okay.
And when he resigns, that makes the
Office vacant.
Two, when the Emorimor Papa Iteso dies or passes on, that makes the office vacant. Like in the current situation, the office is vacant because we lost the former Emorimor. Three, when he retires.
Does the constitution provide for an age limit that from 6, because I've only seen must be above 60? Does it provide for the age at which the Emorimor retires?
Well, when you look at it, there is option of resigning and retiring. What I know that resigning is usually
Voluntary.
Is voluntary. But retiring is when time comes to an end. But there is no time limit once you're elected. So that could be a contradiction. There is no time limit. I am aware that in the first constitution before amendment, there was a time limit for what?
For Emorimor.
For Emorimor. Yeah, before the amendment, which gave kind of a lifetime office office bearer.
Okay.
Then, now when the Emorimor resigns or retires honorably, I don't know who determines that, maybe the delegates conference, he shall be accorded befitting honor to be decided by the council. So council will decide how to honor Emorimor who has resigned.
Council, not the delegates conference.
Not the delegates conference.
And yet the delegates conference is there.
Yes. So the council is the one which will determine how to honor that person.
Okay.
Yeah, and remember, the office also can fall vacant when the office bearer is removed. Now, removal means involuntary. Someone has removed you from office. And what are the grounds of removing an Emorimor from office? 1. Abuse of office or willful violation of the provisions of this constitution. So, if the Emorimor Papa Iteso abuses his office or violates the constitution, that is one ground which can lead to his removal. 2. Misconduct, misbehavior, which brings or is likely to bring the office of His Highness, the Emorimor Papa Iteso, into hatred, ridicule, contempt, and disrepute. 3. Physical, mental incapacity that makes him incapable of performing his functions. 3. When he's declared bankrupt by a competent court.
Declared bankrupt?
By a competent court.
What would make the Emorimor bankrupt? I thought that he's the custodian of all the finances.
No, I think this refers to his personal capacity, personal finances. If a person is declared bankrupt by a competent court, bankrupt means that you are no longer able to discharge your obligations, your financial obligations. You can no longer pay your debts, you can no longer run your financial affairs. So the law allows someone to file for bankruptcy, or the creditors of that person to file for bankruptcy.
So literally,
it is a court to declare that
someone is
now bankrupt.
But
and if you're bankrupt, then you're banned from
being Emorimor. So Emorimor has to look after himself, literally.
He also has to look after his own finances.
Oh.
Yes. Then the Emorimor Papa Iteso can be removed under those grounds, by a vote of 2/3 of the delegates at a regular conference or extraordinary conference of the delegates have been given 30 days notice of that motion. So if you have grounds for removing Emorimor, those grounds are presented to the delegates conference, and the delegates conference was voted by 2/3
Of the quorum.
To be able to remove what?
The
The
Emorimor.
Emorimor. Anything below 2/3 means that motion has been what? Defeated.
Okay.
Now, another thing, in the event that the office falls vacant accidentally, the chairperson of the council shall takes responsibility for a period not exceeding 6 months while organizing elections. And this one I need to read again because people are really interested in this. That in the unlikely event that the office falls vacant accidentally, I don't know what accidentally means.
Maybe
here.
mean that he's not forced to resign or removed or...
The chairperson of the council takes responsibility for the period not exceeding 6 months while organizing elections. So, if the office falls vacant accidentally, I don't know what accidentally means, but the only ways the office can fall vacant have been put in the previous article, and one of those includes death. Maybe that is the one they refer to as accidental. Accidental. So the chairperson of the council takes over the responsibility of Emorimor Papa Iteso for 6 months.
Just like now that we have an interim Emorimor, Papa Paul Sunday Emolot is the chairperson of the council, so he is interim Emorimor for the 6 months until the next Emorimor is elected.
That is what the Constitution envisages.
Okay.
That in case of an accidental vacancy, which could also be a vacancy by death, the chairperson of the Iteso Council takes over that responsibility, not exceeding 6 months. So it means you can even take it over for 3 to 4 weeks and organize the next election, but not exceeding 6 months.
Okay.
The next article is on the advisors. The advisors are appointed by Emorimor Papa Iteso to advise him on different areas he deems necessary. The advisors shall, in consultation with the district executive, execute their advisory roles and responsibilities to the Emorimor Papa Iteso and to the union in general. So this one is clear, not contentious. So let's move on. The council. Article 17. The council. What is the council? There shall be a council which is the parliament of the union. The term of council shall be 5 years. The council shall have subcommittees with chairpersons, including subcommittees of finance, culture, health, natural resources, information, legal affairs, works and transport, disciplinary, and appointments. The general purpose and other council shall be all deemed necessary. So those are some of the committees which can be under the council, but the council has the mandate to increase on that once it sees it's necessary to have a committee on this so that it can.
I see it has no committee on youth.
Well, maybe socio-economic development and finance, I don't know. But once the council deems it necessary that it needs a committee on youth affairs, then it has the power to constitute one.
Okay.
The council shall have a chairperson, a vice chairperson, a speaker, deputy speaker, who will be elected by the council to serve for a period of 5 years, and other members elected at the district and sub-county levels, the founder members of the union, and the cabinet ministers and the deputies shall be ex officio. So, remember we said councillors are from that? From the sub-county. 2 persons, a female and male. Those constitute what? the parliament. Those are the parliamentarians of Iteso. Yeah? So there we shall have, of course, a chairperson of council, vice chairperson, a speaker,
Deputy
of the council.
Speaker.
Now, all these other people, these other executive members who are not councillors, are ex officio members. What ex officio means, it means that you can attend, but you do not have voting powers. So someone at a district committee executive can come and attend council, but it does not give him the power to what?
To vote.
To vote. So those are ex officio members. Duties of the council: to oversee the institution of the culture union and to direct the electoral commission to conduct all elections. Yeah? 2, to approve appointments of the prime minister, deputy prime ministers, the ministers, and deputy ministers
Who are appointed by
who are appointed by the Emorimor. So approval of appointments is by the council. To oversee discipline of His Highness Emorimor Papa Iteso and Iteso Cultural Union as a whole. So the question is whether the council can discipline the delegates conference. I don't know.
And yet the delegates conference is the supreme power.
Yeah. So, but that is what it says. To propose and cause amendments in the Iteso Cultural Union Constitution. So this constitution can be amended, I think, under Article 30. Yeah. So they propose the amendments, and they can amend this document. Yeah. The council has power to propose and amend this document. However, ratification, remember we discussed, ratification of any amendments is by the delegates conference. So amendment of the constitution is a two-step approach. 1, the council. 2, ratification by the delegates conference.
Okay.
Then, to act on behalf of the delegates conference, provided such actions and decisions taken thereof are ratified by subsequent delegates conference. I think that is clear. The chairperson of the council to deputize His Highness Emorimor Papa Iteso. The chairperson of the council is the deputy
Emorimor.
of Emorimor. So where do we leave the prime minister?
Exactly.
We shall get to what the roles of the prime minister are. But according to this constitution, the chairperson of council is deputy Emorimor. That is probably why the same constitution says that in the event that the Emorimor is not there, then his deputy, who is the chairperson of council, takes over. Okay, let's move on. To perform such other duties as His Highness Emorimor Papa Iteso may delegate to the conference and may assign to it. So any duties that Emorimor or the delegates conference assigns to the council shall perform. The council shall meet once in every 3 months or more times when necessary. So at least the council shall be able to meet once every 3 months. That is at least once every 3 months. It might be more, but at least once every 3 months the council shall meet. So those asking, how many times does the council meet? Once every what?
Every 3 months.
Every 3 months. The chairperson at the conference of the delegates shall have a casting vote.
What does that mean?
This basically means that the chairperson of the delegates conference, he has also voting powers in the council.
The chairperson.
The chairperson of the delegates conference. That's what it means.
The chairperson of the council has voting rights at the delegates conference.
The chairperson at the delegates conference shall have a casting vote, which means that we are looking at the roles of council. The chairperson of the overall supreme body, the delegates conference, shall have a vote, casting vote
in the council. Okay.
Yes, that's what it means. Then to consider any approved audit accounts and reports and approve estimates and so on. This is what parliaments do. They approve estimates, look at expenditure limits and so on and so forth. That is the role of the council. To elect among themselves one councillor to act as speaker for the particular session in the event of the absence of both speaker and deputy speaker. So if the speaker and deputy speaker are not present in the council has its power to elect one of the councillors there to become the speaker for that session.
Okay.
Yes. Now, then we go into the duties of the chairperson, the vice chairperson, the duties of the speaker, the duties of the deputy speaker, which and as I said, if you want a copy of this document, please contact us and we shall be able to give you the copy. So we move to another important office, the Prime Minister. Article 22. The Prime Minister shall be appointed by His Highness Emorimor Papa Iteso and approved by the Council. A person is not qualified to the office of the Prime Minister unless he or she. So, if you want to be Prime Minister of Teso, you have to have the following qualifications. One is Etesot or Etesot. So this means that the Prime Minister of Ichu can be both female or male. Yeah? Can be any of the two. Is 40 years or older. So if you are a youth, you cannot be a Prime Minister according to this Constitution. He is familiar with the traditions and the cultural practices of Iteso. And all the other qualifications we talked about, has a dignified traditional home. Educational qualification is O-level, S4. Also doesn't have to be in partisan politics. Then, the duties of the Prime Minister. One, to head cabinet. So cabinet is the ministers. To draw a schedule for duties of the members of cabinet. To formulate and develop plans for the union. To chair cabinet meetings. To ensure the implementation of council policies. To guide members of cabinet on policy formulation and implementation. To make prompt reports to council on cabinet decisions and other matters of urgency. To review and evaluate all activities of the union's development. To be the sole spokesperson of the union on all policy matters and related activities. I find this to be a contradiction, especially the last one. To be a sole spokesperson of the union on all policy matters and activities. Now, the same constitution says Emorimor Papa Iteso is the spokesperson. So whenever you use the word sole spokesperson for, I think there is a contradiction there. I think that is a contradiction in this. Then there shall be 4 deputy prime ministers. 4 deputy prime ministers who are also appointed by Papa Emorimor and approved by the council. Each deputy prime minister shall be from one of the regions, one of the 4 regions.
The 4 regions.
Yes. And then their duties are the duties assigned by their boss, the prime minister. Are we together?
Yes.
There. So
I am together.
The cabinet is in Article 25. The cabinet shall consist of the prime minister's chairperson, the deputy prime ministers, ministers and deputy ministers. There shall be 12 cabinet ministers and not more than 32 deputy prime ministers.
Deputy cabinet ministers.
Sorry, there will be 12 cabinet ministers and not more than 32 deputy ministers. That is, and all of those are approved by the council. to be a minister or deputy minister, you must be 30 years and above. In recommending appointments of members of cabinet, there shall ensure regional and geographical representation, which means that you have 12 cabinet ministers and 32 deputy ministers. The constitution says that these positions should be equitably distributed regionally. So let's say you have the 4 regions. You need at least representation. From the 12 cabinet ministers, you have 4 regions.
That's 3.
Yeah, I think equitable is 3 per each. The deputy prime ministers, you have a maximum of 32. So you can also divide that. So it is not lawful for appointments to happen from maybe only one region or the other. So the ministers and deputy ministers shall be 30 years and above, with the exception of the youth docket, and must possess the same minimum qualification as the prime minister. So the youth docket, remember, a youth is someone between 18 and below 29. So the youth docket can have a minister who is below 30. The rest must be 30 and above. Which begs the question, can't other people who are below 30 also be able to take on responsibilities as ministers or deputy ministers in other dockets other than the youth docket? I don't know. That one is back to you, the viewer, to give us your views. Then there's an office which most people have not heard of. It's the office of the wife of His Highness the Emorimor Papa Iteso. It's in Article 26, which establishes that office.
Akaliite.
Yes, the office of Akaliite.
The Akaliite means the wife to the Emorimor.
So this person must be Atesot or must be initiated in a clan and given a clan name if this person is not an Atesot.
I feel that is a bit fair. That even if someone is not Atesot but is married to the Emorimor, then she can be initiated into the clan. It doesn't force or impose onto the Emorimor that you must marry from Teso and all that. So
the responsibilities of that office are: 1, to promote activities related to Ikalia or families, to promote marriage values and norms of Ikalia and girl child protection, to coordinate government programs on antenatal, maternal, and child care, to discourage early child marriage and abuse, and to handle issues of gender-based violence. So that is important. Those are the roles of the office of Akaliite.
Those are all responsibilities of being a mother. You have to care for your children.
Yes. So the next Article 28 talks about the Electoral Commission, the foundation and its boards. 29 talks about discipline and governance and ceremonies. Article 30, which very many people are also interested in, is the one of amendments.
Before we go into the amendments, the discipline, governance and ceremonies includes land, burial, marriage, dressing, and any other institutions deemed fit. That means that matters of land, marriage, the dressing code, burials, and all the other ceremonies are all handled under the Discipline, Governance and Ceremonies Act.
The governance of those ceremonies is under that article.
And I would like to pose just one question. what our traditional dressing is, because there has been a lot of different people coming out with different how do they call them? Everyone has a different way they feel the Iteso dress. This is our dressing code. The next time you're seeing them doing other kinds of dressing codes, and I feel that it is our responsibility to know what exactly the Iteso traditional wear is supposed to be.
Yeah, that is true. And remember, the promotion of the traditions and so on is one of the aims and objectives of
Ichu.
Aims and objectives of Ichu.
Okay.
So, aims and objectives of Ichu. So, amendments, Article 30 talks about amendments to this constitution. And we have already looked at other articles which gave amendment power to the council. So the council to propose amendments and to make amendments to this constitution. However, those amendments are ratified by the delegates conference. So we said amendments of this constitution are two-pronged. One, the council. Two, ratification at the delegates conference. Then the last article is on dissolution of the Iteso Cultural Union. So that is our review of this document of the Iteso Cultural Union, the Constitution. I know there are many questions out there, but I hope these videos have helped to shed lights on some of the areas which have been in the dark for so long. And I know many questions are coming in and will come in, and I don't know what we shall do about those questions.
We shall get those questions. Kindly share those questions in our comment section. We shall have a session where we shall answer to all these questions, and by then we shall have a representative from the Iteso Cultural Union who will answer to these questions in more detail.
Oh, that is good. That is good. I hope we shall do that. Any controversies, any words, put them there, all your views, and we shall discuss them. For example, there is one which someone said that when the appointing authority passes on, does the cabinet remain with the mandate? We shall answer that one.
Yes, so thank you very much for joining us in this session. Thank you so much for following Mysteries in Iteso. Those who are visiting us for the first time, kindly like, subscribe to our page for more updates, and for all those that did not get the first session of this discussion, please follow on our